It's 3 o'clock p.m. Friday, April 25th, I guess, 2025. And we're moving to a new row. I'm going to keep the cattle and sheep together for this row. I had a good idea. I think it's a better idea than leader follower. Probably requires a similar amount of work, but I think it'll get better results. So, come on guys, go around. Go around in the opening. I'll show you guys the idea in a second here. Whew. What are you hollow for? That's the right side. Come on. Let's get this straggler. Let's see what she's up to. How you doing? You're barely walking with a limp at all now. But you are still lagging behind everybody else. So my idea. I think it's a pretty smart idea. I was thinking about it for a long time. And the more I think about it, the more I like it. So we're here in the easternmost part of the pasture. The easternmost part of the row. And what I normally do is I graze from the west and I just move them twice a day towards the east here. And this is the easternmost part of the row. And that way's kind of easy. I just have to put up a cross wire so they don't go too far. The only issue is they spend more time in the middle than I'd like. And it's short of putting up back fencing, there's really not a good way to keep them from doing that. And I noticed the sheep, they were all spread out in this last rotation. So if I were to do leader follower, I'd still need to put up back fencing for the sheep. So the idea is I set up a lane where the water source is on the west side there. Maybe this is something obvious for people that have done this for a while, but to me it's kind of a novel idea. So there's a fence that goes along all the way back to the western fence, and there's the actual row line here. Let me stand closer to it so you can see it better. So here we go. So this is the actual row fence, and then there's to build like a lane that they can go back to the water source at the beginning there. And so when I move them, I moved closer and closer towards the water source, which means they're not going to go back to poopy potty pasture that they've already grazed. So they're not going to spend any more time in the middle than they have to, right? And that lane should be wide enough that they're comfortable. They won't be tempted to jump the fence, but narrow enough that they won't like take a break there, you know, lay down, chew their cud and stuff like that in the lane. So they're going to spend the maximum amount of time possible in this pasture, pooping, peeing, grazing. And then when I move them to the next section, this will all be grazed off mostly. There'll be a lot of poop and pee here. And so they're not going to be tempted to come back here. They're going to want to spend their time on the fresh grass. And then I keep moving them that way. They're never going to come back here, you know, barring, you know, if they actually run out of grass in their new paddock. So in that way, we don't back graze. Like, they're not going to come back here and graze again. You can see the grass is taller than the sheep now. This is ridiculous. And the back 20 is doing even better. The back 20 last year was my emergency stockpile, and I did use it a couple times. I think I used it once because they were going to mow, and so I said, just let me put my cattle back there first. I'll graze off whatever's there. And I used it another time because I was trying to wean, and I need a good fence between the cattle and their calves, and the electric wire wasn't cutting it. So that's probably the only case I'll use the back 20 is for weaning, and if they say they're going to mow it again. So I might as well graze the grass before they mow it. Which means I think I only went back there twice last year. So, and frankly, it's looking really good. And I think next year my plan is to graze that stuff. Now there's a couple things I wanted to do before I really go back there and graze with the sheep. Number one is I wanted to clear along the fence line. There's a bunch of trees you could see, and there's a bunch of places where the fence really isn't accessible because of the trees. And it's just barbed wire. There's no electric wire on that fence, right? So the thought is I clear like 10, 15 feet away from the fence line. And I better get cracking on that if I'm going to do it, because doing it in the summer is going to be brutal. But I clear that fence line out, and that'll make it easier to maintain the fence line. Oh, look, we have berries growing and stuff like that in these bushes now. It's April and we're getting berries. It just blows my mind sometimes. This is stuff I'd only see in July in the Pacific Northwest. So anyway, clear the fence line, and then I was thinking of actually setting up the hot wire using high tensile wire, but having it offset by 6 or 12 inches or something like that, using fiberglass rods. And the reason why I didn't do fiberglass rods for this property was my calculations they're basically wrong, right? So I calculated that I would save money by using the fence clips, and because I thought I had to get a fiberglass rod for every T-post, but the truth is the fiberglass rods, especially when you're on flat ground, you don't need them every 10 feet. I can do a 20, maybe even 30 feet, I think, apart, maybe even more, because with the fiberglass rods, I can really tension that wire. And that's what I plan to do, is just put excessive tension on that wire, and then if the wire, like a branch or a tree, falls on the wire, the rod's bent, not the wire. So that's a good thing. So you don't need to, and they put a ton of tension on this this barbed wire too, but this fence is kind of getting old. And anyway, so that's my idea, is I put a perimeter fence out with hot wire, but at the very least, if I clear the wire out, I should be able to put up like netting or something like that when the sheep are in the row, and that way the predators won't bother them in the row, but so far it's not really, I don't feel comfortable putting my sheep back there. I really don't. But tons of grass. Maybe I just send the cows back here, just let them go to town for a month or something like that, or maybe I break it up into 3 sections, 7 acres, 6-7 acres, and then let them go to town for like a week, and so I get 3 weeks back here. Anyway, so I'll definitely incorporate the back 20 next year in the rotation plan. So I have to start laying groundwork today, because by next year, if my numbers are correct, I should have a lot more sheep, right? So I'm planning to get a bunch of lambs in August, and then do another lambing in April, and that should give me about 100 lambs in both August and April. So my flock size might be up to size, and so the puppies need to stay away from the cows. So if that happens, then the sheep will be eating just as much grass as the cows, which is what I want. I want half of my AUs in calves, a cow calf, half of it in sheep. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. So I'm reverse grazing, backwards grazing, I don't know. So I don't have to set up the back fencing. It is a little more work. It's about the same amount of work as I was doing with leader follower. If I were to do this with leader follower, I'd have to set up 2 lanes, one for each kind of animal, so they don't mix. I just don't see a point to doing that. So, oh well, it's time for me to finish this off. And one of the things I could do is, I have some ideas. I've taken this wire that goes around the north side of the pond and flipping it to the south side, and then I'm going to think about that. Anyway, guys, you have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.